I don't know who leaned closer first. Maybe it was me. Maybe it was her. All I know is that the space between us had stopped feeling empty. It had started to ache. Her name was Claire. Mid-40s, though the years looked different on her than they did on anyone else I'd ever met. Where others showed time like a burden, she wore it like a secret advantage, grace in every movement, something calm but dangerous in her eyes. I wasn't supposed to look at her this way. She was my friend's mother. The one who opened the door when we came over, who set glasses of water on the table without being asked, who seemed untouchable in her quiet elegance. But tonight, with no one else around, she didn't look untouchable at all. The room was still, except for the faint ticking of the clock above the mantel. Her hand brushed past mine when she reached for the remote, and neither of us moved it away fast enough. Her skin lingered, warm against my knuckles, as if testing something neither of us had said aloud. I should have laughed it off, pulled back, broken the moment. But I didn't. I watched the way her lips parted slightly, how she exhaled as though she had forgotten how to breathe for a second. "You should go home," she murmured, though her voice was too soft, too unconvincing to carry the weight of the words. "Do you want me to?" I asked before I could stop myself. My voice betrayed me. It was too low, too steady, like I had been holding the question back for far too long. Her eyes flicked to mine, then away, as though the walls had suddenly grown ears. Her fingers pressed lightly into her palm, a nervous reflex she probably thought I wouldn't notice. I noticed everything. The faint tremor when she reached for her glass. The way her knee brushed mine and stayed just close enough to feel deliberate. "I'm not sure," she admitted, and it sounded like a confession she hadn't meant to let slip. Silence stretched between us again, thicker this time, alive with the tension of words we wouldn't say. My chest tightened, not with fear, but with something dangerously close to certainty. When I leaned in, I half expected her to pull away. But she didn't. She froze, eyes closing halfway, her breath catching. The faintest smile touched her lips, not of joy, but of surrender, as though she had lost the battle with herself. Our lips almost met, but she turned her head at the last second, and my mouth brushed the corner of hers. That was enough to unravel me. Enough to make me believe there was no going back. "Don't," she whispered, but the words sounded broken, like she was pleading with herself more than with me. I pulled back just enough to see her face, her eyes closed, her body still leaning toward me. Every part of her said yes except the one word she had managed to breathe out. And that contradiction, it undid me. "Claire," I whispered, her name heavy on my tongue, like I had no right to use it the way I just had. Her eyes opened then, slow and unguarded, and she looked at me as though I was no longer just her son's friend. The sound of her moan was barely audible, caught between restraint and desire. "We should stop," she breathed. I leaned closer, my lips grazing her ear, my voice quiet enough that it was only for her. "Say that after one more kiss." But before she could answer, the front door creaked open. The door clicked shut in the hallway, a distant thud that snapped us both back into the roles we were supposed to play. I shifted away too fast, as though distance could erase what almost happened. Claire's hand dropped to her lap, fingers curling into her palm, hiding the tremor I knew was there. Neither of us said anything until the sound of footsteps faded upstairs. Only then did she look at me again, longer than necessary, sharp but unsteady, like she was reminding herself who I was and who she was supposed to be. "You shouldn't." Her voice trailed off, as though finishing the sentence would make it real. I wanted to laugh, but my throat was too tight. "You think I don't already know that?" Her eyes softened, but only for a second. Then she straightened her back, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear in that precise way she always did when she needed control. It almost worked, except for the faint flush on her neck still betraying her. I thought of the stories I'd overheard, her husband leaving years ago, the brief relationships that never seemed to last. I'd seen her alone more often than not, carrying herself like she didn't need anyone. But tonight, with the quiet pressing in, she looked less untouchable. And me? I wasn't exactly in a place to talk. I'd had girlfriends my age, fleeting, distracted, shallow. None of them had the weight she carried in her silences. None of them made me feel like I was standing at the edge of something dangerous and worth it. People wouldn't understand, she whispered finally, as if the thought itself was heavier than the room could hold. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, trying to read her face. Do you? That made her pause. Her lips parted, then pressed closed again. She glanced at the lamp beside us, its dim light throwing soft shadows across her collarbone, across the delicate hollow of her throat. I had to force myself to look away, to not betray how hard it was to breathe sitting this close. Her hand moved then, unthinking, to rest on my shoulder as she leaned past me for her glass. A simple gesture, casual if anyone else had been watching, but her fingers stayed there just a moment too long. The warmth seeped through my shirt, burning into my skin long after she drew it back. You're staring, she said, almost teasing, though her voice wavered at the edges. I swallowed hard. I can't help it. She inhaled, a shaky breath she tried to disguise as a sigh, and shook her head. You're too young to say things like that with so much certainty. Or maybe I'm just the only one willing to say what you're already thinking. Her eyes snapped to mine, wide, unguarded, like I'd said something I wasn't supposed to know. The silence stretched again, the air thick, until she reached out without warning and touched my wrist. Just a light graze of her fingertips, quick enough that it could have been an accident. But it wasn't. The touch lingered between us, invisible, electric. And when she pulled her hand back, the ghost of it stayed, anchoring me to her in a way words never could. The house had gone quiet again. Too quiet. Claire sat back in the armchair, but her posture was stiff, like every part of her body was telling her not to move too close, not to repeat what almost happened. I stayed on the couch, my palms flat against my knees, trying to ignore the fact that her scent, something faintly floral, something that clung to her even after she'd walked past, still hung in the air. Every few seconds, my eyes betrayed me. Slipping toward the curve of her mouth, the soft line of her throat, the way her fingers tapped lightly against the armrest as if to distract herself. She caught me once, and instead of scolding, she just held my gaze. For too long. Then, footsteps again. Fast this time. I jerked upright just as her son's voice echoed from upstairs. Mom? You still awake? Claire's hand flew to the throw blanket at her side, pulling it across her lap like a shield. She shot me a look, sharp, warning, pleading all at once. Yeah, she called back, her voice suddenly casual, steady. Too steady. Just finishing a show? The footsteps slowed, then retreated toward a bedroom. A door clicked shut. Silence returned. We didn't breathe for a few seconds. Then, slowly, she let out a laugh, soft, nervous, nothing like the composed woman she usually was. I felt the tension in my chest loosen, though not in relief. More in the realization of just how close we'd come. You see? She whispered, her voice breaking on the edges. This can't happen. But she didn't move farther away. She leaned forward instead, elbows on her knees, and for the first time I noticed how tired she looked. The shadows under her eyes, the way her shoulders slumped as though she carried weight no one else ever noticed. I moved without thinking, closing the gap, resting my hand lightly on hers. She flinched, but didn't pull away. I don't care who knows, I murmured. She turned to me sharply, eyes wide. Don't say that. You don't understand what it would mean, for you, for me. Her hand twitched beneath mine, not escaping, not accepting either. Then tell me to let go, I said. She didn't. Instead, she shifted closer, so close I could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. Her breath brushed against my cheek, and my pulse quickened. Every second stretched out, suspended, the world shrinking to just the faint hum of electricity between us. Her lips parted, and for a moment I thought she was going to close the distance. My hand tightened on hers. But her phone buzzed against the table. The sudden vibration broke everything. She tore her gaze away, snatched the phone, and held it close like it was a lifeline. Her hand shook as she read the message, though she tried to hide it. I leaned closer, not even to read, just because I couldn't stop myself. Her voice was barely audible, trembling. You should go. I didn't move. Neither did she. And when she finally looked up, our faces were so close it felt inevitable that the space between us wouldn't hold much longer. The message on her phone went unanswered. She set it face down on the table with a sharpness that betrayed her calm facade. Her hands lingered on the glass surface longer than necessary, knuckles pale. I could hear the faint rhythm of her breath, too quick, uneven, nothing like the controlled woman she tried to show the world. Claire, I said softly. She shook her head before I even continued. Don't. But I couldn't stop now. Not after everything we'd already risked. You keep saying this can't happen, and yet you're still here. With me. Her eyes lifted, sharp and wet all at once, like I had cornered her with the truth she didn't want spoken aloud. Do you think I don't know how wrong this is? How it looks? Her voice faltered. You're too young. You don't understand what people will say. What I'll lose. I leaned forward, my hand trembling as I reached up. She didn't stop me when I brushed a loose strand of hair from her cheek, tucking it gently behind her ear. My fingertips grazed her skin, soft, warm, sending a shiver through me that I knew she felt too. I don't care about them, I whispered. I only care about this. Her lips parted, her breath grazing across my jaw as she leaned just close enough to test me, to torture me. You don't know what you're asking for, she whispered, though the words sounded like surrender, not defiance. My chest tightened. I wanted to say her name again, but it caught in my throat. Instead, I let my thumb rest lightly against her chin, tilting her face up to mine. The world blurred. It was only her eyes, dark, stormy, unsteady. And then she broke. I can't stop thinking about you, she said, the words torn from her as if they'd been locked away too long. Every time you come over, every time you look at me like that. She cut herself off, biting her lip as if swallowing the rest. The confession hung between us, too heavy, too dangerous to ignore. I exhaled, the sound shaky, my forehead lowering until it nearly touched hers. Then stop pretending you don't want this. Her hands clenched against her lap. Then, slowly, one lifted, hesitant, trembling, until it rested against my chest. The warmth of her palm seared through my shirt, pressing directly over my heartbeat. Her eyes flicked to my lips, then back. The silence between us roared. Every second was unbearable, suspended on the edge of something that couldn't be undone. You should leave, she whispered again, but her hand didn't move from my chest. I leaned in, so close my breath mingled with hers, my voice no louder than a heartbeat. Tell me to. Her eyes fluttered shut, her lips only inches away. And then, footsteps on the stairs. A door creaked. Her son's voice groggy. Mom? We both froze, trapped in the closeness we couldn't step back from. The sound of her son's voice froze the air in the room. Claire pulled her hand away from my chest as if my heartbeat had burned her. We sat motionless until his footsteps retreated, a door clicked shut again, and silence settled. But it wasn't the same silence as before. This one was sharper, cutting through the fragile safety we'd built. Claire stood, her movements brisk, deliberate, as if distance could undo what had just happened. She moved toward the kitchen, but her hand trembled on the counter when she braced herself. You need to understand, she said, her voice low, shaky. This isn't just about us. She stopped. Her shoulders lifted with a breath she didn't release. I rose, hesitant, every step toward her pulling me into something I knew was dangerous. He what? Her back stayed to me. For a long moment, I thought she wouldn't answer. Then she said, barely audible. He already suspects. My stomach dropped. She turned, finally meeting my eyes. Last week, he asked me if I thought you came over for him or for me. The floor felt unsteady beneath me. My pulse roared in my ears. And what did you say? I laughed it off. Her voice broke on the words. But the way he looked at me, he didn't believe it. I exhaled, dragging my hand through my hair, heat rushing to my face. Every visit, every glance I thought went unnoticed. Maybe they hadn't. Then we can't. I began, but stopped. Because even as I said it, my body betrayed me, moving closer, drawn to her like gravity itself. Claire's hands gripped the counter tighter, her knuckles white. You see? This is why I told you to stop. You're reckless. You don't think about what this could do. I stepped behind her now, so close I could feel the faint tremor in her shoulders. And you do? You think about it every time I'm here. You think about it when you tell me to go, but your eyes. My voice cracked. Your eyes don't want me to leave. Her breath hitched. She closed her eyes, her body leaning back just enough that her shoulder brushed mine. The contact was slight, accidental, yet her whole frame shivered from it. You don't know what it's like, she whispered. To be seen this way again. To feel wanted after so long. That confession struck deeper than I expected. I swallowed, my throat dry. I lifted my hand slowly, deliberately, brushing the back of my fingers down her arm. She didn't move away. This isn't just me wanting you, I said, my voice raw. You want me too. You're just scared of what comes after. She turned then, suddenly, sharply, our faces inches apart, her breath colliding with mine. Her eyes blazed with something between fear and surrender. Then maybe, she whispered, we stop pretending. Her words hung between us, more dangerous than any kiss. Her words, then maybe we stop pretending, hung in the air, heavy enough to make everything else vanish. The kitchen was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator, the dim light above the counter throwing soft shadows across her face. Claire stood inches from me, her chest rising and falling too quickly. I could feel the heat radiating from her body, the way her breath trembled as it brushed my lips without touching. This is it, she whispered, almost to herself. If I let this happen, I can't take it back. Neither can I said. My voice was low, rougher than I intended. But I don't want to. Her eyes closed, her lashes trembling. I lifted my hand slowly, giving her every chance to step back. She didn't. My fingers brushed along her jawline, soft and warm beneath my touch, until they rested lightly at the nape of her neck. She exhaled sharply, her forehead lowering until it nearly touched mine. You make me feel reckless. I haven't felt that in years. And you make me feel seen, I whispered. The words cracked something inside her. Her lips parted, her hands finally rising to my chest, not to push me away, but to steady herself, her palms flat against the rapid thrum of my heartbeat. For a moment neither of us moved. The space between us burned unbearable. Then I leaned in, and she didn't turn away this time. Our lips met, tentative at first, as though we both feared the reality would shatter the fragile fantasy. But the moment stretched, deepened, until hesitation melted into something rawer, something neither of us could deny. When we broke apart, barely an inch, her hand lingered against my collar, her breathing uneven. This is wrong, she murmured, though her body still leaned into mine, her thumb brushing absent-mindedly along my shirt. Then why does it feel like the only right thing? I said. Her eyes opened then, searching mine, not with fear but with clarity. And for the first time tonight, she didn't look like she was fighting herself. She looked like she had decided. You understand what this means, don't you? She asked softly. I nodded. That we can't go back. Her lips curved into the faintest, saddest smile. Exactly. We stayed there in the quiet, my hand still cradling her neck, her breath still warm against my mouth. And though the world outside was unchanged, something between us had shifted. The line we had hovered over for so long was gone. When she finally pulled back, it wasn't out of fear, it was to look at me, really look at me, like she was memorizing the moment. I needed to know, she whispered. And I understood. We both did. We didn't move for a long time. Her hands still rested against my chest, my thumb brushing the curve of her jaw as if afraid she might disappear if I let go. The world outside went on, traffic faint through the window, the house settling in the night. But in here, it felt like time had paused just for us. Claire finally exhaled, a long, unsteady breath that seemed to let go of every protest she had rehearsed. "I've been so afraid," she whispered, "of what people would say. Of hurting him. Of making a mistake I couldn't take back." I tilted my head, pressing my forehead gently to hers. "And now?" Her eyes fluttered shut, her body leaning into mine in a way that felt less like surrender and more like relief. "Now I don't want to imagine pushing you away anymore." The words anchored something inside me. I slid my hand down, lacing my fingers with hers. Her grip was tentative at first, then tightened, as though she finally allowed herself to hold on. "I'm not going anywhere," I said quietly. Her lips curved in a small, genuine smile, the kind that wasn't polished or practiced, but real, tired, and honest. "You're too young to make promises like that," she teased softly, though her voice cracked just enough to betray how much she wanted to believe me. "Maybe. But I've never meant anything more." She leaned against me then, her head resting against my shoulder. My arm wrapped around her instinctively, holding her closer, the warmth of her body seeping into mine. The tension that had haunted every glance, every near touch, finally softened into something steady, something calmer. We stayed like that, two people on the edge of something no one else would understand, but both knowing we couldn't undo what we had chosen tonight. At last, she lifted her head, pressing the lightest kiss to my forehead, tender and almost maternal, yet charged with everything unspoken between us. "Then we'll figure it out," she whispered. And for the first time, there was no hesitation in her voice.